Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
The tourism minister is weighing in on the government's decision to purchase the Grand Lucayan Hotel.
Opposition leader Philip Davis criticizes the government's move to purchase the Grand Lucayan.
The task of protecting the Bahamas' borders challenging, according to the Defense Force Commodore.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Vonitude. Topping news tonight, the Bahamas Power and Light Board is out, according to President of the Bahamas Electrical Workers Union, Paul Maynard, who told our news this afternoon that union leaders met with Works Minister Desmond Bannister for an hour and a half this afternoon. During that 2:30 meeting, Maynard says Bannister informed them that there will be a new BPL board by Friday. Our news contacted BPL Chairman Darnell Osborne for comment, but she advised us to speak with the Prime Minister. This latest development comes days after the BPL unions wrote Osborne, expressing concerns about the hiring practices at BPL, specifically the hiring of consultants. The unions wrote, presently, the company is in a state of confusion and chaos. Opposition leader Philip Davis said in a statement this afternoon, "Today I reached out to the Prime Minister when I received a credible report that the entire board of Bahamas Power and Light had either resigned or been dismissed. This coming at a time when the company's power generating capacity is collapsing nationwide. I wanted to hear for myself what on earth is going on with this government." The statement continues, "This latest news simply confirms that he and his colleagues do not have a plan on power generation for this country. They also seem to be lurching from one crisis to the next. We need an explanation. What is the backstory? Is incompetence the problem?" The international credit ratings agency Moodys has maintained the Bahamas' Baa3 status, but with a negative outlook, noting that negative outlook reflects potential downside risks to the fiscal consolidation process posed by weaker than expected growth, exposure to climate-related shocks like hurricanes, and implementation risks associated with measures to rein in spending growth and increase revenue intake. Moodys warned it would downgrade the rating if over the next 12 to 18 months, it observes that fiscal consolidation efforts are unlikely to reduce deficits to levels that would reverse the trends of rising debt ratios. The ratings giant said it would also consider a downgrade if contingent liabilities stemming from Bank of the Bahamas and other state-owned enterprises materialize on the country's balance sheet, leading to a material worsening of government's debt metrics. Pointing to the value-added tax increase to 12% and higher fees for gaming operators, Moodys noted that these increases would have to compensate for the likely reduction in customs taxes after the current fiscal year as government moves closer to WTO accession by December 2019. As government considers entering a legal mortgage purchase agreement for the Grand Lucayan, Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar insisted today they are trying to make the best of a bad choice. He says government is working under pressure as the hotel's current owners are threatening to shut it down on a daily basis and lay off even more Grand Bahamians. Jasmine Brown reports.
The tourism minister admits while it may not be the wisest decision to purchase the hotel in Grand Bahama, he says the government has no other choice.
You know, it's not a good decision, but we have to make a decision. Governments have to act, and we have to act to save, to make an attempt to save the economy of Freeport. And that's what we're attempting to do.
His comments follow the Nassau Guardian's headline story that Cabinet is set to mull the terms of the Grand Lucayan purchase as early as today, with the final sale price remaining $65 million. Reportedly, the proposed deal calls for the government to come up with a portion of the money by the time the sale closes. The government would enter a legal mortgage purchase agreement with Hutchison Whampoa to cover the majority of the $65 million over 7 installments. The mortgage payments could be around $5 million per payment, according to information received by The Guardian.
We have to do something. We have to do something for the economy of Freeport. So that's what we've decided was probably the best decision the best of a bad choice.
The decision to purchase the hotel has been criticized by members of the Free National Movement, including former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham and former F&M Cabinet Minister Kenneth Russell. More recently, on Monday, Pine Ridge MP and former chairman of the Hotel Corporation, Frederick McAlpine, said the decision is a bad economic move as he warned government was making a grave mistake. But D'Aguilar maintains that the pressure is on.
The purchaser is threatening every day to close it and lay off all these behemoths and to close it. And once you close it, it's so difficult to reopen.
D'Aguilar also hit out at critics who question how the government can afford to purchase the hotel when it has spent the last year in office crying broke. D'Aguilar says at the end of the day, sacrifices will have to be made.
We'll have to take from one area, tighten over here, but we will come in on a budget. Okay, so I know that there are a lot of people who are complaining that, look, we jacked up our VAT and say we can't afford this and we can't afford that. And this is like a hurricane that is blown up. And so we have to deal with it. This is an emergency situation. And we're just going to have to belt tighten somewhere else.
D'Aguilar says while the government will be purchasing the hotel, they are hopeful they will find another buyer to take the property off their hands. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Philip Davis questioned whether government's decision to purchase the Grand Lucayan is the right move when it claims the cupboard is bare and it has cut back on spending in critical areas. Jillian Gray has that.
The government's decision to purchase the Grand Lucayan is being slammed by opposition leader Philip Davis, who says he doesn't think the government has thought that deal all the way through.
Those funds could be better deployed to touch the lives of the Bahamians, particularly those in Grand Bahama.
Today, the Nassau Guardian reported that the government would enter a legal mortgage purchase agreement to secure the property and would have to come up with the down payment by the time the sale closes. Davis questioned, what are they thinking?
Why would you want to engage yourself in such an expense if you say you have no monies? Right? And the question is whether or not the sellers will be willing to grant them a mortgage. I don't know whether they have arrived at a point of the negotiations where the sellers say, well, I will accept a certain amount down as down payment and you pay me the balance over a period of years. We want to know what the interest rate will be, what will be the conditions of those mortgages. Again, further burdening the Treasury.
The Grand Lucayan property, which consists of 3 brands, would have to undergo a major renovation following severe damage from Hurricane Matthew. The projected cost of the renovation has been pegged at $50 million. However, the opposition fears that buying and fixing up the property could cost the government much more than that.
It will cost them much more than $50 million to put that property in shape. Not only put it back in shape to make it operational, but also they'll need to be able to find what it's going to cost them to bring in a manager, or are they going to manage themselves? It's still the plan has still not been articulated sufficiently enough to see any coherent picture of where they want to go.
Last week, former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham said the purchase of the Grand Bahama Port Authority would be a better move. Davis said he won't fault the government if it decided to go with that route, and revealed that the last Christie administration had eyed a stake in the Port Authority. He said the present structure of the port is not economically beneficial to Grand Bahama.
Yes, we were talking and holding discussions with the potential buyers, with the present owners, with a view of moving them to selling. And there was, I think, a willingness, though reluctantly maybe, to divest themselves, to remove themselves from the way of progress of Grand Bahama.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
The closure of several resorts has resulted in decreased revenue, jobs, and tourists on Grand Bahama over the past decade. Jared Higgs spoke with some of those visitors to find out how their experience was these days.
Nancy Ledford wishes there was a casino in Grand Bahama. The North Carolina native has been visiting the island for the past 25 years and was let down when she found the Grand Lucayan resort mostly closed and her favorite amenity unavailable.
Love to gamble. Very disappointed that they haven't gotten this one opened up at least. I know the one down across from the fences, Princess, is a lost cause. But anyway, I don't know why they don't. Because a lot of people who come down here do want to gamble. I mean, it helps the economy. And I've noticed the last few years they're getting less and less and less people.
It's the story of Grand Bahama's life. A lack of opportunity driving natives to other islands to seek work, and a lack of amenities leaving fly-in visitors asking for more. Ledford, a timeshare owner with significant ties to the island, remembers the more vibrant days of Grand Bahama. She's well aware of the landmarks claimed by time and circumstances.
International Bazaar. I used to love to go in there because of all the little shops. Like they had the Italian, the French, you know, the Spanish, you know, different things. But nothing since the hurricane took that out.
Her travel companion, Anne Scott, has visited the island several times as well. It's safe to say the Southern Belle from the mountains of North Carolina isn't impressed.
I've come here because it's her timeshare. That's where she and her husband chose to buy. Would I hold any interest in coming back? Probably not, because I've been here 4 times and I've seen the community digress. Y'all should have shopping centers. You should have booming businesses. It shouldn't all be t-shirt shops.
Eva Thomas, a cruise ship visitor from Canada, used to live in Grand Bahama during its prime. While the former resident says she was enjoying her day on the island, she admitted that she barely recognized the place.
I didn't recognize any of the buildings in town, even though the names were told to me, because some of them have deteriorated and some of the buildings are empty.
Freeport, once called the Magic City for its prosperity in both tourism and industrial sectors, is admittedly a shadow of its former self. Despite that, some first-time cruise visitors we spoke with were all smiles.
Oh, everything's been great. I mean, we've had a great time. So we went and saw a bunch of the shops, you know, and yeah, we've had a really good time.
Oh, we love it here. It's beautiful. Yeah.
What have you guys done today?
We went to the Garden of the Groves and then just went around shopping here.
Yeah, we took the catamaran snorkel and it was fantastic. We had some conch.
So many fishes.
And all the merchants were great. Bought some cigars. It's fantastic.
These cruise visitors may be happy, but their numbers are dwindling. 2017 was a particularly poor year, with a 43% decline in cruise visitors reported for the month of August when compared to the same period the year before. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Cabinet has decided to eliminate the status of contract workers in the Ministry of Education, according to Minister Jeff Lloyd. He says they first raised concern over contract workers back in March when the Ministry of Education was considering either disciplining or firing some 200 employees for non-performance.
This contract worker business is going to come to an end sometime over the next fiscal year. And we're going to put people in some proper status so that they can either be on the way to permanent and pensionable, or they are going to truly serve a contractual period, and that period comes to an end, then there is no longer an engagement with a particular individual.
Lloyd says the government is now conducting an audit of the nearly 700 contract workers in his ministry.
Please know that we are going through yet again an audit of contract workers. Why? Because we want to know who is there, who is working, where are they working, are you being properly registered in the system, being properly paid, are you being paid by the Ministry of Education, are you being paid by the Ministry of Finance? We want to clarify this once and for all.
As it becomes increasingly difficult for the Defense Force to protect the country's borders, the National Security Minister is proposing a multi-agency task force to get the job done. Kyle Joaquin reports.
National Security Minister Marvin Dames is preparing to present to Cabinet a proposal on a multi-agency task force comprised of the police force and defense force, as well as the Department of Immigration.
And this will go after all of those persons who are trafficking in illicit contraband, who are dealing in uncustoms goods, who are trafficking in persons, and who are doing any other thing that may be illegal.
No one entity can actually cover and secure the countries as we should.
Each day, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force covers over 100,000 square miles of water in search of poachers and illegal migrants seeking to make it to the country's shores. And the job isn't easy.
You know, it's very challenging because we have heard over time that the maritime domain of the Defense Force is equivalent in size to that area between the east end of Puerto Rico all the way south to Trinidad.
Now, according to Commodore Bethel, you can have as many of these vessels as you want, but given the size of the Bahamas' territory, you're going to need a little more technology. In about a month, according to Bethel, the Defense Force will see the installation of its first coastal radar, giving the agency the ability to see sloops and other vessels miles away. On Sunday, illegal migrants successfully landed a sloop near Bannerman Town on Eleuthera. Dozens of illegal migrants have since been captured.
So you need to come up with a technological concept that help bridge the gaps, provide these additional eyes for the Defense Force.
But there's one more problem. According to Dame, some Bahamian boaters are in the business of smuggling illegals into the country.
You know, we have some of our own who are actually facilitating the trafficking in persons, who are facilitating the trafficking in illicit narcotics and firearms.
For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
And still to come on our news, why the stamp tax for gaming patrons was pushed back, plus the U.S. donates another patrol craft to the Defense Force. That's coming up after this break.